Yo, what's up? Yo, what's up? Yeah, y'all feeling me? Y'all feel it? Y'all feel it? I feel it. I need an alien to work for me. I need an alien to twerk for me. I need an alien to work for me. I need an alien to twerk for me. Yeah. I need an alien on Coinbase. I need an alien to trade for me. I need an alien to trade for me. Make gains, no trades for me. I need an alien to trade for me. AI girlfriend, that's the way for me. I need an alien to twerk for me. Proboscis, lip pucker, aliens on Tucker. I need an alien to work for me. I need an alien to twerk for me. Need an alien to work for me. Need an alien to work for me. Need an alien. Need an alien to twerk for me. Alien girlfriend on Coinbase. Make the trades, get base. Get the third base with an alien. Lonely house man. Need an alien in the basement. Need an alien to work for me. Need an alien to twerk for me. Y'all feel that? Am I the only one feeling it? Proboscis, lip pucker, aliens on Tucker. I don't know. It's just freestyle, man. What do you want? What do you want from me? How y'all doing tonight? A lot of things happening. It's just too much stuff happening to even keep up with. You know what I mean? Too many. Every day, just the craziest news stories. Everybody in the chat feeling this. Abduction. Reduction. I'm going to try not to cough. I've got my coof drops. I got all kind of coof drops. How you all doing? We're going to find you the best AI boyfriend, girlfriend for you. Unlock new achievements. Are you lonely? You need to unlock a new achievement. Everybody hit like and share. What's going on? There's nothing else to do on a Friday night, right? I mean, we got all kinds of aliens that can get y'all in the mood. We got this dude. He's not even doing nothing. Remember this one? There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Party night. It's Friday night. Party night. I need an alien to work for me. I need an alien to twerk for me. I thought we'd have fun tonight. A little bit of fun. I don't know. This probably won't work, but I was in the mood for karaoke. Y'all in the mood for karaoke? What song did you wake up thinking about today? Of course, this never works because as soon as you try to play karaoke, it's like copyrighted content. Well, how do you go to a karaoke bar and sing and it's not copyrighted content? The copyright police, Interpol, that'll be busting down all the doors of the karaoke bars. Come on, ooh yeah, top of the world. Beep, 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 beep. This is what I woke up singing. But is it going to work? You know what I mean? I want to just sit around and sing. That's really what I feel like doing tonight. I remember one time I did a live stream where I tried to just do karaoke songs, karaoke songs. And it had like 1 million super chats. I got like $500 from doing a karaoke stream. And then it was like 30 copyrights on that video. So I might could do it and then just take the stream down, put it on Rockfin, something like that, right? You know what I mean? Y'all want to... Of course, we could just do karaoke stream on Rockfin. That's also a possibility. I think I'd get away with that. I know when Jamie and I did our mom core, dad core song, we somehow got away with... We played a bunch of stuff. And we're not just singing tonight. We're going to talk about aliens. We're going to talk about the Tucker clip. We're going to talk about... I got to get in a fun mood, though. All this stuff is so ridiculous. You just can't take all this stuff too serious. You know what I mean? This is a classic book. I mean, we're talking all of the essays of the Collins brothers for the last 15 years. 1,000 pages. And it has within it its own alien psyop book. 300 pages right here in the middle. So that's a classic. Everybody be sure and get Invoking the Beyond. But I mean, are y'all not just feeling this? Y'all not feeling it? Let's see, I got my karaoke here. If you send me super chats, I'll quit. Oh, come on. Oh, yeah. Well, I tried to tell you so, but I guess you didn't know. That's the saddest story goes. Baby, now I got the flow, cause I knew it from the start. Baby, when you broke my heart, that I had to come again and show you that I'm real. You lied to me all those times I said that I loved you. You lied to me. Yes, I tried. Yes, I tried. You lied to me. Even though you know I'd die for you. Yes, I cry. Yes, I cried. Here it is. Come on. Oh my gosh. Here I am. Once again. Top of the world. So I'm back up in the game. And I'm always running things. Oops. I lost my place. Now I'm back to run the show. Cause of what they did, you know was wrong. And all the nasty things you've done. I lost my place. Come on to me. She said she'd never turn on me. But you did. But you did. All this pain you said I'd never feel. But I do, do. Come on, hold on, don't you know, here I go. Oh, little girl, up and down. Jay. Mark Burns, Mark Hackard.
For God's sake.
Mark Hackard.
Stop letting me down.
Okay, I'll stop. Who are you, by the way? To me, she said she'd never turn on me. But you did. Anyway, what'd y'all think about that? That was fun. Top of the world. Oh! It is too real. I got a super chat out of it. Did we get any copyright strikes? Look, we somehow made it through that. So hell, I might just keep doing that all night. I just mean that song over and over and over. What if I trolled y'all and I did a live stream that was just that all night long? Is the sound too low? It's always hard to get these levels right. I think Scott Stapp from Creed doing Mac Morrison or whatever his name is, that would be a good version. That'd be a better version, actually. Thank y'all for the cheers, the adulations. Thank you for the vanities. Thank you for all the vanities of the vanities from people in the audience. Better than most. I wasn't even singing serious. What if I was singing for serious? Y'all have heard some of my other songs where I do sing for serious. Some people got blown away. So, I'm just clowning around right now. What if I turned on the serious juice? What if I flipped the serious button? Then what? You can super chat with super chats. With Streamlabs. One more time. Y'all joking, right? Y'all joking. Well, I was going to try to play it. I got to try to play it in sync. I'm not going to do the whole song again. Right. Whoa! Come on. Oh, yeah. When I tried to tell you so, but I guess you didn't know that the saddest story goes. We already have one. One's enough. Come on, y'all had enough of that. Let's do. What if we could do karaoke night? I can do this one. And I took a bunch of cough-related stuff, right? People are like, what drugs is he on? It's called coffee. It's called Coof Drops. That's what I'm on. Think we can get away with this one? Y'all know this one? Y'all want to hear that one? Karaoke or get serious? It's the audience choice tonight. What do y'all want to do? Try karaoke? Come on. Oh, yeah. I'm also sick. Still, I've got like the Vatican coof for like 5 years now. And I can still do it. We busted out with Aliens Twerking. We went to freaking Mac Morrison. It's been 2018 since I did a karaoke stream. And I think this audience deserves it. It's a Christmas present. We're going to get serious, don't worry. Everybody wants karaoke tonight? We can try it. Although I don't know if it's going to work because the the copyright algorithm will attack. You know what I mean? Here's a classic I can sing. People say I'm no good, crazy as a loon. Y'all know that song? Let's see if it works.
The moment a friend becomes a real friend.
Why'd you got ad blocker? Why'd you got ad blocker? See, the the super chats always come rolling in when I start singing, start yodeling, start yelping. Make him stop. Send him money. Make him stop. People in the other room yelling to the people watching and listening. Make him stop, please. Send him $50. It'll shut him up. Yeah, you send me $50, I'll shut up. Oh, I had an idea. Here's another one I can do. It's kind of hard, though. Ooh! Y'all know that one? All right, Matt, one more. Everybody's being tortured with this. Make him stop, please. Make him stop. Turn it off. Ooh, here I go again. Let's see if it works. Ooh, sucker never ends. This is my favorite karaoke song. Oh, this verse sucks too. Ooh. I guess it's the only version there is. Y'all know this one? Piss up a rope. Talking about some wing. Here I go. Oh, this doesn't have the words. I do know the words. Well, I gotta have a version with the words. I don't want Purple Rain. I know there's a karaoke version because I've done it before. I'm trying to redeem myself because we had a karaoke last Christmas at a party, and I did pretty good. But I messed up on one song. And it was the one song, and I just totally failed. I just collapsed and crumbled, dude. I like knocked it out of the park with like 4 karaokes, and then I came to my favorite, and I just messed it all up. It was just a big old mess, man. So I'm trying to redeem myself because I wanna nail Pink Cashmere. You know what I'm saying? Who? Here we go. It doesn't have the words. What's the use of the karaoke without the words? That's stupid. Let's try Pink Cashmere karaoke. Y'all got some more requests? What do y'all want to hear? Whitney Houston? Y'all want to hear Barry White? So none of these have the words. I mean, I kind of know the words, but anyway. Ooh, if I go again, falling in love all over. Oh, the cycle never ends. You just pray you don't get burned. Oh, this fire inside of me don't nobody realize. See? Anyway, we got 400 people. Dang, 400 people with the karaoke party. And we can't even do freaking Prince now. Y'all want to hear somebody said Barry Manilow. Y'all want Cher? Cher karaoke? Prince karaoke. What's our options? Everybody knows Raspberry Beret though. Why do we scream at each other? I don't like I'm not a big fan of When Doves Cry, you know what I mean? Do we have any wood grain gripping? I'm a hood. I don't know if I can get away with singing that one. Might get in trouble singing that one. I know a lot of Prince. There's a lot of Prince songs I can do, but baby, you got to learn. Making you a coat of pink. Let me try another way.
Ask her. I'm not going to ask her. Are you an alum here?
No, I'm married to Tim.
Ah, shiver me timber.
So there's a whole bunch of karaoke versions and no words. So the only reason I need the words is because I won't get the spots right. Because I'm not used to it. Spotify, no. I guess they took it down because there used to be Pink Cashmere. Can somebody put a link to Pink Cashmere freaking karaoke song? Anyway, do we want to go on and let's get to aliens, right? I'm worldly. What does that mean? You here to preach to me? Too worldly. He's a sinner, man. For daring to know the lyrics to Long-Haired Country Boy. Y'all want me to sing Cream? 1999. Should we get to the serious stuff? What happens when you start a live stream and you're supposed to be talking about serious stuff and then I don't have any inkling of being serious, but I put all these serious topics. I do like Raspberry Beret though. That's a pretty good song. I mean, people get mad about that though if I sing it. Not that I care, but y'all want some more rap? we got a rap heavy audience, right? Oh, here I go again, falling in love all over. Oh, that will never end. You just pray you don't get burned. Oh, a pink cashmere, counting every minute of every hour. Do you want you need? I'm off. Julio. All right, we gotta get serious. Enough of this nonsense. There's too much nonsense. We gotta talk about the real stuff. We had alien twerking. That's good enough. That's enough for y'all. So, come on. Did y'all see the big conversation that went down between me and Rollo and James Sexton, the famous lawyer man, the famous lawman, the famous lawman? sounds like a line from a I don't know, John Wayne movie or something. The lawman. Jim Bob, Andrew, talking about chopping it up, talking about destiny. I'm not talking about fate. I wish we were talking about fate. It'd be a better world if we were just talking about fate and not blue-haired destiny. But that was an interesting. We'll get to the aliens. Don't worry. We got all night to talk about aliens. Thank y'all for those generous super chats. That's very super. Y'all are super people. Come on. Hooray. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. I saw the sign. Somebody said, we need to hear you do Ace of Base. More like Ass of Base. That's what I would. That's my band. I'm going to start a band. That's what it's going to be called. Watch. You think I'm joking? It's Ass of Base. And we're only going to put out booty bass CDs. Y'all, a lot of kids don't even know what that is. And by the way, remember this? We're going to revisit a little bit of this. Remember this classic? I uploaded this to Twitter and then I accidentally deleted it as soon as it went up, which was an idiotic thing to do, but I will re-upload it. Y'all remember booty bass? In the 90s, there was the trend. I guess it's still a trend because I hear dudes riding around with subwoofers and twin woofers and meta woofers and whatever all the woofers are. You know, this still goes on. I don't think it's as big though as it was in the 90s. But people would bring their bass CD to school, right? And then the bass CD, it all looked like this right here. Tech Master PEB, bass, bass, I want more bass. But it was for the dudes that had the, woofers. So that they could play riding around. See, I don't even see that many. Here we go. Bass Quake. Bass Quake. Bass CDs. And basically the music's awful. It's just bass. But it's for the dudes that, here we go. Look at all them. That's it. This is what the 90s were like. You go to high school and your friends are like, oh man, you get that new bass CD? Even the white dudes. Not just black dudes. All the white dudes had ladies of bass. How could there be chicks and there's no bass? There's no women with bass. Women don't have bass. See, women trying to step into my domain, the bass CDs. 90s bass mix. Let's see if we can find one royalty free. And it's all just, here we go, Miami bass. Yeah, like this. That's not right. Doom, doom. It's got to be really low bass. 10 minutes of 90s bass. No. Anyway. I never had a woofers and all that stuff, so I never really understood. Maybe it was supposed to, I don't know, like, does it turn girls on? I'm trying to figure out, like, is it just peacocking? You just trying to get attention? Look at the speakers I got, dude. I spent my Walmart paycheck on $5,000 speakers, bro. It took me 6 months saving up, wasting my money on stupid ass bass. I'm not talking about supersonic, just bass. Just they were just generic. It was like they came out of a factory line. Just bass, just bass. I want more bass. But if you grew up in the 90s, you remember bass CDs. So, we're talking about aliens, though. What does that have to do? Anyway, I don't know how we got to that from Destiny, but so this was an interesting conversation. I'll play a little, couple bits of it because we got, as you might imagine, Andrew steered the conversation. I'm not fussing. I'm just stating what happened. Andrew steers the conversation away from Destiny to God's existence. So it's just interesting to be able to be in this situation where I get to talk to people you would never expect, right, about all of these metaphysical topics. We got into other metaphysical issues, and James and I had an interesting back and forth. We'll hear this part. There's quite a few good gags and jokes on the way as we watched a bunch of TikTok videos. Then we got to a bunch of clips of Destiny, swimming in a pool and being fed treats. Yes.
Could have put that on there, but I
never take a low shot. Yeah.
I held off until it was the right moment.
Unlike Andrew, just doesn't give a fuck.
I don't.
Yeah, no,
And by the way,
godless.
gentlemen, hang on.
Yeah.
There's one more I have to look at real quick. Here we go.
What is this, fucking dolphin?
That's Destiny coming up from his...
So it actually gets way worse than this. It's not just his girlfriend feeding him like a dolphin, which I guess is supposed to be funny. I'm debating whether I should play the other clip. I don't think our audience would find, but so I've never watched anything from Destiny. I don't know anything about Destiny other than when he trolled Tristan in their debate and didn't show up to debate in good faith, which I told Tristan that's probably what was going to happen, that Destiny is not really a good faith debater. But there's a certain clip that I'm trying to find. I don't see it, but regardless, here's what we have is basically this is a throuple situation. So that's the ex-girlfriend there that or the ex-wife. And this is the this is before they got together, and they're in this fun throuple situation. You see, that's two guys. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. The conversation, however, progresses to other topics, which I'm going to play a little bit and comment on because James is a prominent lawyer who's been on quite a few pretty big podcasts. He was on Lex Fridman, and then we all kind of had this conversation about ethics and God's existence and whatnot. So the reason I'm playing this, though, is that I actually thought the way that I encapsulated the argument here in a very common atheist question and objection is worth repeating. So we're not going to watch all this. If you really want to watch this whole thing, which is largely just clowning around and joking, right? So, and Destiny has pretty much gone after everyone in our sphere. So that's, I think, and even adjacent spheres of people and everyone on this podcast. So that's sort of the background here. But I did want to play the little exchange between Mr. Sexton and I, because it was actually a good apologetic example here. Then she could have been dudes on the side and stuff, and
so people need to
say, okay, this way of doing something isn't working, so the opposite of it must be our salvation.
what we romanticize that our grandparents are the greatest generation.
I want to be able to make no compromises, but also my partner should come.
Let the record show I'm not an atheist. If you want to know
Be a perfect complement to who you are, a person you enjoy.
All right, so I'm just trying to find the part where Andrew shifts the conversation away from Destiny to theism. So that's the part I wanted to play here.
Enjoy being with a person who you probably have monogamy with, because you would say, "Hey, this is what I want."
Well, doesn't this bring up the whole point, really, kind of to our arguments in the past to Rollo? If you are married, but you're acting in all of the ways a Christian marriage would be enacted, which you are, right? Faithful to your wife, she's faithful to you. You're handling your obligations as a husband. She sees you as the head of your household. All of the different, all the different variances which are there. It seems like you're kind of following the infrastructure anyhow. You know what I mean? And so if that's the case, I would feel like that's a point. I'm not favor,
an atheist. I just let the record show I'm not an atheist. If you want to know I know. It's it's the last chapter of my 4th book. So,
but there's a secular argument to be made for this. I mean, even if you don't.
So here's where it gets good, right? So Mr. Sexton's he's gonna say, well, let's just have a purely secular argument for, loosely Western biblical morals, the 10 Commandments, right? He makes this argument. Why don't we just have a secular? Because why do I have to choose a theist, grounding or a theist response? Why don't I just say that if this works, then I'll use this ethic, right? Because it's useful. It's utilitarian. And I'm playing this because I hear this all the time. So you're going to hear me give a basic response as to why that doesn't work, and hopefully it'll click with everybody why I'm playing it and why my response makes sense. And I think I made it very succinct and very clear. So here we go.
If you don't believe in God, there are a million reasons to follow the 10 Commandments. It really is not just a function of I've never followed the argument of, we would have no morality if we didn't have religion. I don't buy that. I rape and kill as many people as I want to, which is none.
I brought you on specifically tonight. I did this to you, James, because Jay Dyer here happens to be one of the finest Christian apologists on planet Earth.
By the way, this was not planned. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't even know that Sexton and Rollo were coming on. I thought it was me and Jim Bob and Andrew just gonna be riffing and making fun of videos and stuff. Not that I don't mind it. It's just that I wasn't expecting any of this. I had no idea who was coming on his stream. He was like, "Hey, you want to hop on and celebrate the Christmas stream?" And I said, "Yeah." So this was just kind of out of nowhere.
And he believes in the opposite, that
I know
that morality can't actually really exist absent a God, and that the secular argument doesn't work. And I've been kind of waiting to see what this exchange would be like forever. So I just kind of wanted you to maybe lay your case out for that real quick.
Me or Jay?
Well, Jay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know this wasn't planned. So
no, it's not planned.
That's
I would say that, like I was talking about earlier when the guy asked, could you summarize your argument in under a minute? Like, it's true that what James is saying, that person could definitely choose the principles of the Ten Commandments to, live a life that benefits them so that they can flourish, so the society, functions in a moral way. That's true. But in terms of like logical argumentation in philosophy, we usually talk about grounding, because there's a difference between just a pragmatic sort of acceptance of the things because it works versus, is it coherent? Can you actually demonstrate a basis for the ethics beyond just kind of a pragmatic, well, it works for me, it's a subjective thing, I like it. Going beyond that and saying that, okay, but how does this work? How is it possible that there's right and wrong? So the argument is out of the domain of like subjectivity and pragmatism and into the domain of whether there's a coherent account for the ethics. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes.
So once again, as you can imagine, the point here, we always have to stress, is that in philosophy, there's this thing called justification. And it's not, and more specifically in epistemology, which is a branch of philosophy, a lot of people think, and I think James probably thinks this as well, I'm not knocking him, just stating because this is typically what people think. They think that, well, philosophy is this thing that kind of, spurgy people do who go to university, and it's just its own kind of world. It doesn't relate to the rest of the world, the world of law and politics and whatever else, right? But what they're failing to understand is that once you engage in rational debate and discourse, no, you're actually in the domain of philosophy, even if you don't know it. And that's the hardest thing to get people to understand, is that you're in the domain of philosophy, even if you don't know it. And what I tried to do is make an analogy to law, to James, right? Because, if I'm driving down the street, I'm subject to the laws of traffic, even if I don't even know what the local traffic laws are. Maybe there's ordinances about how, you can't, I don't know, make a left turn in the downtown, Court Square area, and I do it. But I didn't know that ordinance. Well, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm still subject to the ordinances, even if I don't know them. So likewise, in the domain of ethics, in the domain of philosophy and epistemology, if you make a knowledge claim, you claim to know something, you're subject to the rules and laws of thought, whether you know them or not. Thus, you can't irrationally make moves or non sequiturs, right, that don't work. It's kind of like chess, and I make a chess analogy here in a second, where I say that just because you don't know all the chess rules, like you can't come to the chessboard and say, oh, well, I brought, here's my checker piece, and here's my Monopoly man, and, stick all these different things on the board and start doing whatever you want, or flip the board over and say, I won. Those violate the rules. So most people just simply don't understand that there's such a thing as laws of thought, rules of thought. That's all logic is. And they're not arbitrary. They're laws and rules that reflect actual metaphysical principles, because they directly relate to the true and the false, the good and the bad. So that's where I was trying to kind of introduce the topic here in this discussion. And hopefully you'll notice that. And here's what's interesting is that he was a great guy to talk to. We had a great 3-hour interaction there. Really smart guy. But I still don't think he understood what I meant by justification, because I think a lot of people, when they hear that word, they think of it in sort of the colloquial sense, right? They think of justification as like, I'm justified in what I say to you because I have the right, something like that. What we mean is giving good reasons for beliefs. And they have to be good reasons in the sense of being coherent with the rest of our beliefs, the rest of our reasons for our beliefs. So it can't just be any old reasons. Oh, I believe 2 + 2 is 4 because I had a dream. And in my dream, Bill Cosby appeared and said, Feeble follows evil's all, well, 2 plus 2 is 4. So therefore, that's why I think 2 plus 2. That's a bad reason. Even though it's true, it's not a good reason. So justification is just simply giving good reasons for our beliefs, because we want to have some reason for our belief. If we don't have any reasons, then our beliefs are completely irrational. That doesn't make me a rationalist. It just makes me rational. Two different things. Rationalism is a system, or a kind of all-encompassing philosophy where everything is exhaustively explainable and definable in some, worship of reason sense. That's rationalism. Not the same thing as being rational. It's two different things. Just like having an idea, it's not the same thing as idealism in philosophy. And when I say idealism, I'm not using it in the colloquial sense. I don't mean idealistic 20-year-olds who believe that they can instantiate world socialism. No. Idealism, the philosophy that all that exists is ideas, like Plato, like Hegel. That's what I mean. So we're like 2 or 3 levels removed from pop normal discourse. So people don't even know what we're talking about when they hear the words. They think we're using the words in the colloquial sense, right? Like person in theology, right? Oh, you're talking about just a dude. No, that's not what person is in theology. It's much more nuanced than that. It's charitable and nuanced. So let's see how he replies to the basic encapsulation that I gave, that things need to have good reasons behind them, not just any old reasons.
Sense to me. I think I don't know that it gets us any further, though, in terms of the logic of it, because I think ultimately you could look at it purely as a societal function, right? You could just say, well, these are the principles around which an ordered society should be put together. Or you could look at it even from just a broader experience of the self, right? So if you look at, for example, like how Judaism views hell, it doesn't view hell as a place. It views hell as a state of being outside the grace of God, and of that you are in hell when you sin, meaning that you make your life into hell by sinning. So in that situation, even if I think you take, theology out of it, if it could be, an atheist could say, yeah, I see how I feel when I'm hurtful to others. I see how that has a blowback repercussion effect that causes, when I hurt someone, it causes them to be more inclined to hurt someone. And therefore it devolves and moves us in a negative direction, as opposed to a direction where people can thrive and be happy. So I don't know that, again, I think when we start with a religious principle, it's always much, much easier. I think whatever that religion would be it's because you can't argue with it. Like, I can't possibly say to you, what would you accept as proof that God doesn't exist? Like, there's no answer to that for you, I assume.
So just a couple assumptions that I'm sure you guys have already seen here, unproven sort of assumptions, or not demonstrated yet assumptions that somehow theology is antithetical to rationality and reasoning, right? Which is just simply not true. Of course, we don't think that, but everybody post-Enlightenment and post-Schleiermacher, post-Kant, they have thought, the world has thought that reason is antithetical to revelation or to theology. And we, of course, have a totally different paradigm, that the only case for reasoning is theology. The only grounding or justification for reason itself is divine revelation and theology. So it's flipped backwards the way that most people think of it. And I'm sure you perceptive, beautiful Jay's Analysis Chad nerds in the audience also recognized the assumption that society can choose these things to work and for the good. To work to do what? The good, for the common good. The good of what? What is that? Because now we're in the domain of ethics and metaphysics. And so ultimately what we're going to see is that the account given is utilitarian. And I'm not knocking people who think that. That's just sort of the, it's the zeitgeist we live in. It's the air we breathe is utilitarian ethics. And other things kind of connected to that, like consequentialist ethics, right? These are all, post atheist, post-enlightenment, post-revolutionary thought versions of ethics connected to things like empiricism, connected to Jeremy Bentham, connected to David Hume, right? What's our ethic going to be if there's no God? Well, we'll just pick the most maximum amount of happiness for the maximum number of people. And that becomes the good. Of course, happiness, what does that mean? Is that pleasure principle? Does that mean if we're in a rat maze and we're, the rats hit the coom button and they're all just coomed out, but they're happy all day? Well, that's the perfect utilitarian society. If we're talking about a happiness principle, right? So it's just moving the can back a step. I love mixing up my metaphors, right? It's kicking the problem down the road. It's moving the can back a step. Right? So it's just one step back. But I think a lot of people who are educated, very intelligent people like Mr. Sexton, they see things like the good, an appeal to the common good, an appeal to what works or what is pragmatic or utilitarian. They see that as kind of like a higher level appeal, but they ignore or they don't want to get into the next logical question, which is, well, what is the good? What does it mean to have utility? Utility for what?
I assume you have faith in God, and proof denies faith to some degree. So I don't. I understand the point of view you're positing. I just don't. I think there is secular morality. I think that it is as difficult to articulate as your reasons for believing in the existence of God. It's
well, of course. The fact that there is secular morality was not the question. We know that there is secular morality. The question is, as I posed already, but how do we give an account for it and justify the belief in that? And so the response was, well, theology is difficult and giving an account for any kind of ethic is difficult, but secular ethics exists. Yeah, but that wasn't in question. The question was the justification for its existence.
That there is something in you that knows what is right and knows what is wrong. You have a moral instinct, or you have, and again, instinct is a problematic word, right? Like Neil Postman, who's one of my mentors at NYU, said, instinct is just the word we put on for something we don't understand. So it's the equivalent of saying, hey, why didn't the sun rise today? Oh, because today is sun does not rise day, and accepting that as a logical argument. But I do think there is something within all of us, and whether someone wants to call that God's light or whether someone wants to just call that a moral sense, I think that exists, and that can be a compass point for people, just like faith in God. That was longer than a minute, sorry.
Well, it's true that people have a moral sense, but why? Why would there be an innate moral sense? And I'm sure he would say, well, it's just an evolutionary kind of thing that developed to help society, make it and move, have the next generation, right? Because if you don't have these moral norms, then the species won't survive. But that doesn't give an account for whether it's right or wrong. I mean, maybe it's bad for us to have that. Maybe we shouldn't have a moral center. Maybe having a moral center is what holds us back from conquering and taking over, right? Maybe we give a Nietzschean response. Now, I'm not saying that he believes that, but I'm saying that you see how already it's just completely kind of blown past the question that was asked.
Can I be the one that's in between both of them?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You don't mean like in a weird Destiny sandwich way, do you? Because Jay and I don't really.
Absolutely. Get in the center there.
I give you the
who's Destiny and who's Melena or whatever.
In this relationship, because Sexton is going to be doing a show with me soon, by the way, I'm gonna have to give him shit because he's a left winger, and I'm gonna call him the Melina and you the Destiny of the relationship here. So anyway, go ahead, Rollo.
I was just gonna.
I'm okay with being the Melina and not the Destiny.
Well, I'm
the more masculine of the two.
Jesus Christ, I know. I'm not saying something. So anyways, for those of you who don't know, my fourth book is actually titled Religion, and it's about the confluence of red pill and religion, really intersectional dynamics, right? And it goes into political stuff, social stuff, religious stuff as well. And so the way that I sort of approach this is that I look at it in the sense of how like red pill is the theory and like game is the practice. And really that's really game dynamic, or like game theory, game dynamics is what it is. And so if you got hypothesis and you have theory, and then you take that and you put it into practice, like people always say, well, the red pill is.
So just to kind of set the stage to where it's going, he's going to give a utilitarian account of ethics as well. So that's where he's going with his response.
It's big on explanations. It's big on like Rollo, he talks and talks and talks, and he just, all he does is talk, and it's all theory. And he just, but that's because it has to be comprehensive. And then there's putting those ideas into practice. And I think that when I look at things like, say, like religion, for example, I see that as a sort of a confluence of best practices that has to be based on a certain foundational or core truth or a hypothesis. Like, this is what we believe, and therefore this is the doctrine, this is the practice that we put it into. And one is incomplete without the other. So you can't just have nothing but like, oh, this is just the way we do it, and we don't question why we do it this way. It's, I forget what the saying is, like tradition is just like truth that nobody remembers why we do these things anymore, kind of thing. And I think that when you're looking at from James' perspective here, is like you don't necessarily have to have sort of this like religious or this moral foundation to actually live a quote unquote ethical morality, whatever, a good life, to practice best practices that work for him. Like you said, like I murder as many people as I want to, which is a 0, because that's best practices for James, right? But we can also say, well, there's a moral foundation for that, and that might also be true as well. But really, what happens is you're looking at like religion tends to be best practices. So social conventions are best practices. You can even think in terms of like political ideology. Well, this is what conservatism or progressivism, they both think they're right. They both think that those are the best practices, and that everybody should adopt those things so that they can live a more productive, more fuller, more quote unquote happy or content life as a result of you sticking to those practices. But those practices have to be based on something that is like a good predictive framework. I think like when in praxeological terms, we'd say, well, we have enough data here that we can build a predictive framework around that. Okay, if we can do that, what are the best practices according to this predictive framework? It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but it has to be 89% accurate. It has to be accurate enough so that we can actually use this and make it useful to people, as opposed to just sitting around.
By the way, props to Jim Bob, who just kind of like kept sipping the bourbon or whatever. It was getting more and more buzzed. And so like by the end of this conversation, and by the way, Jim Bob actually does jump in because I get really tired. This is like the third hour of blabbering on here, me yapping. So I kind of checked out and I handed off to Jim Bob, and he did really good asking questions, by the way. So Jim Bob has more and more grounded himself in good argumentation, and so he's getting pretty good at invading TikTok, especially when Jim Bob does his TikTok invasions. They're quite humorous. But Jim Bob got more and more buzzed and was just kind of like it was like buzzed apologetics. It was a lot of fun. So if you do want to watch this full thing, it's a 3-hour conversation we had. You can go watch it over here on my Rockfin. There it is right there. Jim Bob was a hoot that whole day. Absolutely. Hooty hoo. And so then Rollo will finish up this comment about utilitarian ethics, and then I think it's either me or James next, and then we'll move on to other topics after this.
On just navel gazing and just contemplating a theory all the time. It's just like, if you have those two separated, if you have just doctrine, you have just practice, and you have just theory, and you have just just like the basis, kind of like whether it's your scripture or whether it's the religion itself, whatever is like the motivating source of truth. Though if you separate the two of those, then you have sort of this disconnect because one informs the other, and it's sort of this circle. And I think just from a logistical, like a logic based system, you kind of have to have those two. So when I look at religion, I look at it as sort of a list of best practices. Now you can add faith to that, and you can add metaphysics to that, and you can add metaphorical truth to that as well. But that doesn't necessarily take away from the core objective truth that it might necessarily be based on. So my question to you guys is, are you familiar with the concept of metaphorical truth? Because metaphorical truth, I'm just going to see if I can paraphrase Brett Weinstein here. There's a saying, or there's this old folks tale that says like a porcupine can shoot its quills, right? Well, a porcupine can't actually shoot its quills, but you want the kids to stay away from the goddamn porcupine, because if you get a porcupine needle in you, it's going to hurt like hell. So it's better for you to believe in the metaphorical truth that if you get close enough to a porcupine, it's going to shoot its quills at you. Objectively speaking, that's incorrect and not true. Like all snakes are poisonous. They're not, but it's best to behave in its best practices to believe that the porcupine can shoot its quills. It's a similar thing for like, well, we don't eat pork, we don't eat shellfish because the Lord said no unclean animals, no hoof, like whether you're Muslim or you're Jewish or whatever, don't eat these animals because you'll get trichinosis and die. Well, now we know that we can cure pork and bacon tastes good. And so we now know what the objective, like latent purpose of that particular prohibition was. So you're looking at the truth versus the best practice, which is don't eat these animals because you'll probably die if you eat these animals. So I look at it in a sense of like there's the core truth and there's a core hypothesis, and then there's also the best practices that go with it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I mean, listen, I get it. I'm interested in hearing Jay's thoughts on that. And
yeah, I would say, I think there are metaphorical truths that, religion, allegory, symbolism convey to us. Definitely, I think. But I'm making a more precise point to what James was saying when he talked about the pragmatic basis for why he might choose the ethics of the Ten Commandments. So I understand the motivation. I understand why you would say it helps you to flourish, and it's just not all the other baggage isn't needed. But I was making a more specific argument that is in the domain of logic, which is that anytime we assert something or believe that something exists, then, and this is specific to philosophy. So I'm not trying to be like a philosophy douchebag, but kind of like, if I asked you a law question, you would say, well, in the domain of law, you kind of got to do the rules of law. In the same way, in the domain of philosophy or logic, there's laws and rules that kind of have to be followed, like the laws of debate, for example. So even though we're not in a formal debate, even in an informal exchange, there's still kind of it's like the game of chess, right? There's laws to the chessboard, and I can't come and like just flip it over and say, aha, I won because I flipped it over, right? There's laws that dictate it, which I would argue are kind of invariant, they're immaterial, they are the case. So any exchange has to follow these rules, these laws. These would be the laws of logic. These would be things like informal fallacies, right? I can't just come to the debate and spout a bunch of fallacies and say, ha, I won. No, I'm not following the rules. So likewise, if the question arises about, say, ethics, and what are these ethical values? Where are they? How do we derive them? What's the justification for them? That's a very specific kind of philosophical term and argument that anything that we posit that exists or that we believe in, we need not just any reasons, but we actually need good reasons for why we believe in them. So my argument was that morals and the Ten Commandments, these kinds of things, they make sense in a world where there is a God. If there's not a God, even though you might choose. I like how Jim Bob is basically on a boat, and he's rocking more and more. Like the more whiskey that goes into Jim Bob, the more Jim Bob's like about to tip over. Everybody in the chat getting tipsy. Everybody in the chat getting tipsy. Jim Bob is getting tipsy. Right. I'm watching Jim Bob, not even listening to my argument. Them for, subjective, pragmatic motives. There's not really any basis or epistemic justification for believing in those things or saying that they exist. So you might like them, you might prefer them, but what's the actual argument in the sense of like justified true belief, grounding for why you would believe in the ethics? And if it doesn't meet those criterion, then what happens in philosophy is that we say it's really just an unjustified assertion, and it doesn't count as an argument. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I
So, so I brought out what I thought was kind of the clearest, most precise argument that I could make about what I was trying to say. And Jim Bob's over there just kind of like enjoying the buzz, right? Which was cracking me up. But I still don't think James really... Well, I think he understood where I was going, because he says something like, oh, you're going towards, Plato and the dialogues of Meno and all the dialogue with the Socratic dialogue Meno or whatever. So I don't remember any of this stuff, which is fine. I mean, it was an impromptu discussion anyway. It wasn't like a planned debate, but it looks like the stream is... I might have to switch to the LAN connection because it's lagging. So let's see
a theological standpoint, but over the span of human history, there have been thousands of gods worshipped by societies. And so any one of them would say theirs is the one true God and the moral authority that they, claim their God has asserted in whatever manner, whether it's the Quran or the Bible or the Talmud or the Dhammapada or whatever thing somebody says that they're...
I'm up on that Dhammapada over here. I'm sitting on the potty reading my Dhammapada, smoking on some pada, right? Dhammapada. I mean, I don't even know what that is. But I'm gonna look dumb because it's like, oh, you don't know the world. No, I don't know the world religions. Actually, I'm not. I'm not a scholar of world religions. So
I think that bothers.
But yeah, I mean, this was a really bad argument too, because, and I think I point this out in the next response. I'm like, well, the fact that a bunch of people disagree over something is irrelevant to what's true and false, right? That's actually a fallacy. So what we're learning again is that, like I think somebody in the chat said, you guys are basically just talking two different languages, pretty much, right? So there's a little bit more, a couple more minutes, and then we'll move on to the fake and the grays.
There is the basis of their God's voice being heard and the underlying logic upon which their morality is built. I just think that's saying, well, it's built on something, but it's built on something so amorphous and so totally unfalsifiable that, okay, like it's not really built on it. It sounds like it's built on something, but it's not actually built on something. I mean, one of my favorite, I wouldn't consider myself an atheist, but one of my favorite things that I think it was a debate between Stephen Colbert and Ricky Gervais, where Ricky Gervais said something along the lines of, well, there have been thousands of gods throughout human history, and you believe in one of them and don't believe in 2,999 of them. And so we just disagree about one. Like, we just disagree about one God. We're in agreement on the other thousands of gods, And so I think that's where we get into...
There's multiple fallacies at work here, right? Because, first of all, it's a form of appeal to the masses, right? As if the fact that a lot of people disagree about something therefore makes the position itself false. Just transfer this to anything else that's not controversial, right? Imagine if we said, okay, a lot of people disagree over 2 + 2 = 4. Would their disagreement or the number of people with that disagreement have anything to do with whether 2 + 2 = 4? No, of course not. So that's one element of this. There also might be a version of parts whole fallacy too, because the argument is basically saying all of the things in this class of things are false. And so I'm just saying that one more thing is false. But the question itself is, what's true and false? So you can't from the outset assume that none of those things exist, and therefore the thing that's in question, I'm just going to include it in the class of things that don't exist, right? It's begging the question, because that's the thing in question. And it also assumes that all theistic positions are equivalent. They're not. I mean, it's like saying, I could do the same type of argument with atheism. Most atheists have bad argumentation. Therefore, I'm just going one step further and rejecting all of atheism. Right? would an atheist accept that? Of course not. That's a non sequitur. You can't say it's all true because there's a lot of bad atheists and bad argumentation. Yeah, exactly. That's why what you said is a fallacy. It's not. It's a terrible argument. It doesn't work.
A challenge here is that it the first premise, we're not coming from the same first premise.
That's true, but I would argue that's a fallacy.
Right. But what value would that argument have?
No, I'm saying what you argued is relying on a fallacy. That's
right. Well, and I would argue what you're arguing is relying on a fallacy, which is that there is any omnipotent.
Yeah, first of all, what he argued actually was a fallacy. And what I argued, even if he disagrees, it wasn't a fallacy, as I point out.
Or basic core concept of faith that should be given any value for the purposes of an argument.
Well, what fallacy would that be?
The existence of an omnipotent creator deity from which morality stems.
Yeah, that's not a fallacy. Right? So that's a position. A fallacy is a violation of the laws or rules of thought and logic, right? So there's formal and informal. We're talking about here informal fallacies. So you might think that my belief in God's existence is false, or in metaphysical principles or whatever. But that's not a fallacy. Fallacy is things like ad hominem, tu quoque, right? Affirming the consequent. Those are fallacies. And his argument was a type of appeal to vox populi, appeal to the masses, appeal to numbers, appeal to, 99% of gods are false, so therefore the other percent is false. It's a form of appeal to masses. That's a fallacy. But nothing that I said was actually a fallacy. And maybe I did argue a fallacy, or maybe I did argue fallaciously. But he confuses fallacy with. He thinks that a fallacy is just a position that's wrong. No, that's not. Again, showing that people don't know what justification is. They don't know what the laws of logic are. Well, that's not a fallacy. You might think it's false, but I'm saying specific fallacies. Yours was an appeal to the fact that a lot of people disagree, right? So it's a kind of it's a form of appeal to the masses, which is a fallacy. But we haven't determined yet whether God exists or doesn't exist. But even if he doesn't exist, it's not a fallacy. I might have a bad argument, but my belief in God itself isn't a fallacy.
Right. God, I haven't done classical philosophical argument in a long time, but I was told there'd be no math on this test.
Yeah, I know.
And the reason I stopped doing.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about this like FDA says in the chat. If 999 people believe that there's a different answer to 2 + 2 = 4, and I say, well, I'm just going to go one step further and say that I reject all arithmetic because almost everyone, right, believes in that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. You see how silly it would be, right? So it's confusing categories. It's resting on a combination of different types of fallacies. And it's also not understanding that the difference between having a belief and giving arguments for that belief, right? So having a belief is not a fallacy. Fallacy would be giving bad arguments for that belief.
Look,
the reason I stopped doing it is it created.
Session, there's going to be. It's a crucible. There's going to be a little bit of debate, but it is a hangout session, and it's fine for the back and forth.
The reason I stopped doing those kinds of arguments is it felt like it was a way of trying to make something sound much more mathematically precise than what it would be if you actually were just speaking of it in a. I mean, look, I think where understanding fails, a word comes to take its place, right? That's Wittgenstein. So I get it. Like I understand from I guess I could study up on my classical philosophy and we could try to have that discussion. But I think ultimately, like matters of faith, if it's your core concept and we don't agree on that, you're going to have a difficult time. We're going to have a.
Which he's actually correct there, which is why we argue presuppositions and transcendental argumentation. Because ultimately it does come down to our governing paradigm positions, right? Our worldview, our fundamental beliefs in ethics, epistemology, and metaphysics. That's what it comes down to. And that's why we end up debating paradigms and worldviews. So that part he actually is totally correct about. And I think he realized that if this conversation was going to continue, it would have to be, going into that in that domain, into the paradigm level. And we were already like almost 3 hours into it at this point. So we ended up calling it a night. But Jim Bob did continue on interacting with and debating with Rollo, asking questions about, not a formal debate, just kind of back and forth exchange about, utilitarian ethics and so forth, and what is the good, and how do we know the good. So you can watch the rest of that conversation there. I had a lot of people saying, hey, comment on, what was it, Ben Shapiro. I can't imagine this being a debate that goes very far. But I've had probably 50 people say, what about Cosmic Skeptic and Ben Shapiro? So, is there a highlights of this? I mean, let's try. There's an 11-minute video about free will. And then there's a full, I guess let's try this. Let's see what happens here. I don't know if I'll be able to stomach this whole thing, right? I mean, I feel like this is going to be tough. But we'll listen to some of it because so many people requested it. Let's hear and let's see if the argumentation is any good. I don't have high hopes. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. The thing with Ben Shapiro is that he has a history, I think, of owning the college libs, which is like anybody with any philosophical knowledge could own any college lib, right? I mean, that's like super low-hanging fruit. I'm not saying it is totally pointless to go after low-hanging fruit, but has Ben Shapiro actually debated anyone substantial that I'm not aware of? I think maybe William Lane Craig or something. I guess that counts. But we all know that all these people very selectively choose who they will debate because there's a lot at stake, I think, right? I mean, I think Ben Shapiro is big enough a name that even if he lost a debate or two, it's not going to do anything, right? But for a lot of people, people are like, when are you going to debate Sam Harris? When are you going to debate Dick Dawkins? That'll never happen, dummy. Like, those people are never going to have a debate with me. I would have that debate, but it's just not ever going to happen. There's way too much for them to lose and absolutely nothing for them to gain, right? Because this is still, we still on the come up over here, right? We're not big time. We're still, our star is still rising, dog. So what's the point of debating a dude with 100,000 followers if you got, 2 million, 5 million, 6 million, whatever, there's no advantage to it. So it's like people have no idea how things actually work, right? Now, it did actually work when people asked Matt Dillahunty like 100 times or more over a span of 3 or 4 years, right? Eventually he did agree to a debate. And the same thing happened with Stefan Molyneux. So many people asked Stefan to do a debate that it eventually just happened, right? So over time, I think people will maybe agree to it if you're kind of in the same like rough domain, right? Like Stefan had a much larger audience, but we were kind of in the same, adjacent circles of argumentation and debate. I don't know anybody in Cosmic Skeptics circles. I don't know anybody in Ben Shapiro circles. So, I mean, this kind of a debate would never happen. I mean, it would be a very long, long shot, right?
Yes, if there is no God, there is no free will. But I think that's because of the truth of the latter of those statements. That I suppose the biggest criticism that I made of you in a video response that I made to the atheist delusion and this show does seem to have an extraordinary capacity for putting me face to face with people that I've been talking smack about online. So thanks again.
By the way, I should say it's a great video, and everybody should watch it if they haven't.
Well, I'm going to put that in the description. I think that glowing.
So wait a minute. If I talk smack about Ben Shapiro, does that mean I'll get a face-to-face debate? What if I do the whole debate? What if I did the whole debate doing the impression of Ben Shapiro? Like, what if I did the whole debate that way? I think then it would be very logical, be very plausible. Definitely, could I do an impression of Ben Shapiro to his face, and then would I get on Daily Wire? Is that something that we could guarantee? Will this happen?
Endorsement. The principal disagreement that I think I had with you, Ben, is that there was a subtle, or not so subtle, implication in my view that yes, with no God, there's no free will. But somehow having God can solve this problem. I mean, you said a moment ago that you don't think you can establish God's existence through reason alone, but assuming that you do believe in the existence of free will,
wouldn't you love to see Alex O'Connor come up against Tag? I mean, this guy would completely collapse into a soy puddle, which he already is. I mean, I think he's given up veganism. Remember when he was like all championing veganism? I think he was chosen, by the way, to be kind of the Dawkins successor. I think they did a podcast together. So, Richard was like,
Esther, I need a successor. You, my child, will be my successor.
Right. So Dawkins has an offspring goblin here in this character. But first of all, again, this guy would melt at Tag. He wouldn't last 5 minutes with that kind of an argument. So would Ben Shapiro too, by the way. But I'm worried that Ben Shapiro is not going to bring out the biggest guns that you can when somebody says there's no such thing as free will, because this is the repeat of my debate with JF, and we know how that debate went. Everybody remembers that one. So if Ben Shapiro's a quality debater, I would look for him to bring that nuclear strength argument out. But most of these people, I hate to, I mean, this is what you guys are presented with as like high intellectual stuff. And for people that like, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, or people like myself, people that studied this stuff in college and grad school and whatever, like it's funny because, and I don't mean it in an arrogant way, like this stuff is really low tier. And okay, that's why it's popular. Sure. That's why so it's sad though, because the level of the discourse that happens in the popular sphere is so low tier that it's really just a disservice to everybody. And that's the sad part. But you can't really talk about, if you talk about that, then people think, oh, you're just salty and jealous. You're jealous of Alex O'Connor. You're jealous of Ben Shapiro. And it's like, I mean, imagine if a lot of you guys are musicians out there, right? And you got guitar bros that are like Yngwie Malmsteen, and they can do freaking algorithms on their guitar somehow, right? And when they hear, Katy Perry songs or something like that, or like a garbage pop song, right? And then the audience, the popular people are like, that's the most crazy, awesome pop song I ever heard. And then the Yngwie Malmsteen guitar genius or person is over there, and they're like, or the classical trained musician is like, that's not even music. Right? Even if the classically trained person is not that good at music, they can still recognize that this is low tier stuff, man. So for those, it's the same thing in philosophy. When you look at this stuff, you hear this stuff, and it's like, it's amazing because like the level of argument they're having is the kind of thing that would be had in a philosophy 101 class. Everybody who's been in a philosophy 101 class, there's going to be some like super low tier debate about determinism and free will. Okay, which is, again, this is like the kind of discussion you have in philosophy 101. But I mean, the public is just so like out to lunch, and I mean, again, it's like I'm just going to say it very simply for you guys. The people that are presented to you as sophisticated public intellectuals are intentionally given to you because it's low tier stuff. That's what I'm trying to say to you. And if you doubt me on that, I can't help you, because it's a fact and you're probably never going to get it. So just forget it.
I think it's a real thing that you have.
Yes.
And simultaneously saying that if there is no God, then free will makes no sense.
Yes.
That does read to me like an argument for God's existence, such that in order to either say that there is free will, in order to say that there is free will, one must believe in God. And that does strike me as an argument for God's existence.
I mean, to slightly curve that, or to kind of sand off the rough edges there, I would say that the argument I made is an argument for something extra natural.
Sure.
Now, you can call that God or not God, but the thing that I'm making the argument for is that you cannot get from a materialist Darwinist universe to free will. That is not possible. So I know that the way you solve that is that you...
Okay, so I would disagree with this idea that what I called it is above the natural. Well, that would be supernatural. He says whether you call it supernatural or not, well, that would be supernatural if it's above the natural. But yes, so that's a little weak already. But then to move to the point that really a Darwinian mechanistic universe would, remove the possibility of free will in this reductionist naturalist account. That's correct. So hopefully he can sustain this argument.
Say that there is no free will.
That's right.
And what I'm saying to you is you don't act that way.
I hear this all the time. People...
Now, that is true. That's actually oftentimes a way that we argue in TAG, is that we point out that a lot of atheist argumentation says something, they act as if they believe that, but then they don't actually believe that. I do think it's a powerful rhetorical point. It's a good moral point. But in their worldview, they can just say, yeah, but I don't have to live I can live contrary to what I actually think is the case, right? So I think there's value in calling this out, but it's limited in its usefulness, and there's a lot stronger directions that you can go. So I hope he continues to press in a stronger way, but it does have a good rhetorical value to point this out.
Say, look, you may say there's no free will, but you don't act as though that's the case. I suppose that I'm just confused as to what it would look like for somebody to act as if they believe there was no free will. I mean, the very argument that there is no free will that I subscribe to, at least one of the various forms that it takes, is a sort of Schopenhauerian view that you can do as you will, you just can't will what you will, and that you are essentially just a biological...
Well, I'm very sus. I doubt that he's actually read Schopenhauer, but even if that were the case, let's listen to what he claimed it was again.
View that you can do as you will, you just can't will what you will.
So I can do what I will, but I can't will what I will. Well, number one, remember he's a determinist, so you're not actually willing. And so he's probably going to bite the bullet and say that, yeah, free will is an illusion, it's illusory, but I'm going to continue to live in my illusion as if I have free will. So that's probably what he's going to say.
And that you...
Of course, that's not going to do him any good because it's not going to give you any account of ethics at all. He's going to have to surrender ethics. Remember, this was a guy who, a year or two ago, was vehemently arguing that veganism was a universal ethical requirement. Remember, that's the goober we're talking about here.
Are essentially just a biological machine reacting to its to its internal and evolutionary drives. That's what's happening. Now,
you're just a biological machine reacting to internal drives. Now, he's given on a silver platter a complete dismantling opportunity for Ben Shapiro. So hopefully Ben Shapiro has caught that plate of dismantling feasting that he just offered up, because just like my debate with JF, he doesn't even understand. The atheist makes a fool of himself. He doesn't even see that all of his argumentation has just been negated and canceled out and disqualified by that proposition that he just put on a platter. Because now it means that everything he's saying is no longer an argument, but merely a determined chemical reaction and process. Did you catch that? Because he now believes in a dysteleological universe, a universe with no purpose. Therefore, there is no such thing as truth and falsehood in a chaotic, meaningless, purposeless universe. And so therefore, none of his decisions are truth-directed. None of his propositions are truth-directed. They are merely the irrational effects of a chemical reaction in a chaotic process that is determined. So he did not actually choose the true over the false, because there is no choosing. And low IQ atheists are always like, but he still chose, even if it's determined, he still chose the true. He didn't choose anything. There's no he. There's no he there choosing. But he still was determined to choose the true. No, he wasn't. There is no he. There is no choosing. There is no true. Because you've equalized the true and the false, the good and the bad. They're all just what is.
Call that nihilistic if you like, that's a separate question. But as to the question of how this would make one act.
Actually, if it's a nihilistic ethic, it's not a separate question. It's the very thing in question, dummy.
The idea that this might cause us to sort of lay around in bed all day or something. The very mechanism that I think is responsible for eliminating the possibility of free will, that is, the drives that make people do what they do. Like I say, do exactly that. Make people do what they do. They make them get out of bed in the morning. Why do you get out of bed and go and make your breakfast if there's no free will? So you go and get breakfast because there's no free will and something is driving you to do that that's outside of your control.
For sure. So to get back to the nihilism point, which you kind of put aside, so that means that this conversation is essentially worthless in any sort of real sense. I mean,
yes, there we go. Ben Shapiro's correct here. This is the very point that was made to JF in our debate. So he's on the right road here. I'm a little surprised. Not that I don't think Ben Shapiro is a dumb person. I think he's a smart person. So I'm not saying that he can't do a good debate. I mean, we've all heard him owning the 20-year-old college goobers, which again, anyone with half a sense of reality and truth and an IQ above room temperature can own those people. But he is going down the right road of argumentation that I would go down, so he gets a point for that.
Effectively, we were driven here by evolutionary biology and environment to have this conversation. Everybody who's watching this is driven by evolutionary biology and environment to have a particular reaction to that thing, and ever round the cycle goes. That seems like a very purposeless life. Maybe again, I'm drawing from a realm that is not evolutionarily biologically connected. The word purpose is really, teleology obviously has been taken out of the realm of science pretty thoroughly by
That's all correct. Ben Shapiro is correct here, and this is the right type of argumentation. When you heard me say that the universe is dysteleological, I'm saying the same thing he's saying there. That's just a fancy term for no purpose. Teleology being the idea of purpose in the world, in nature, in our actions, in terms of the whole universe having a telos or a purpose. Hence, because God created it, it has meaning. Meaning makes sense in that universe. Meaning does not make sense and is impossible in a deterministic universe. So this is the right direction.
Atheists and by many people in the sciences, although I would argue that, again, most scientists speak in the realm of teleology literally all the time, and they're borrowing language from the language of teleology, even when they're describing functions of particular body parts, right? The heart pumps blood in order to keep you alive, right? They're constantly using language that's teleological in nature. The real question that I have, and this is what goes to the question that you were asking at the beginning, before the sort of pre-question question, which was the good of religion to society. One of those goods is people believing that their free will matters and this actually is a useful thing. So I believe that it is deeply important for people in society to believe that they have the capacity to change themselves.
Like already from the outset, the way the debate's framed is kind of a losing proposition. The debate is not free will and determinism. The debate is titled, is religion good for society? First of all, there's no such thing as religion, as if all the different religions are part of this overall worshiping of deities and of a generic natural theology God. There's true religion and false religion. But there's no such thing as like generic religion. And the question is already out of whack, because in order to know if religion is good for society or not, we need to know what the good is. But the very question itself gets that out of order by assuming that you have some criteria of the good by which to judge the religion. But religion, or metaphysics and theology, is the basis for and the grounding for the good. So it's a dumb way to propose the debate. But of course, this this is the type of religion that, or debate that, like, normies love this type of framing of the debate, right? But it's all backwards, and it's ignoring the nuclear strength apologetic that we could have, which is to turn the tables and ask Alex O'Connor and Ben Shapiro as well, okay, what is the good and what is the basis for your criteria, your grounding, your judging, your benchmark for the good here? Because that's what's already presupposed, and nobody's even asking the question, which is like philosophy 101, to ask, well, what is the good? So how are you going to judge whether religion's good for society without first determining how you know what the good is?
And to make different decisions than what biology would drive them to do. So you say, well, it's biology that drives you to get out of bed in the morning, which is almost Calvinist in sort of the way that it's described, right? It's like you're predestined to get out of bed.
He's actually correct in that analogy that the mechanistic Darwinian naturalist universe really just took Calvinism and smushed it into the mechanistic process of the universe itself. And there is actually, I think, some validity to that historical account that people give. That out of the Enlightenment, a lot of the Scottish, Enlightenment philosophers like David Hume and others, right? What was the theology existing at that time throughout Scotland? Scottish Covenanter Calvinism. What do the Puritans believe? Puritanical, James Edwards, radical, extreme, occasionalist version of predestination. So, yeah, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to naturalistic predetermination. So once the Puritans and the Enlightenment, the New Light Presbyterians and all those people had ditched the Trinity and ditched miracles, they went from Unitarianism to straight up naturalistic determinism. Yeah. Hop, skip, and a jump, logical progression. So he's actually correct.
In the morning, so thus you get out of bed in the morning. But the reality is that we are constantly making decisions as though those decisions make a difference in the universe. And what social science actually does tend to show is that when people believe that they have control over their own actions, and when they believe that they're capable of changing the way that they live, they do make those changes with more alacrity and in better directions than if they don't believe that. If people tend to believe in a deterministic universe.
This whole argument about people do better when they believe this really is irrelevant if the question is about what's true and what's false. So again, the misnamed premise of this debate, is religion good for society, is just the wrong-headed way to have the debate. It's a question of what's true and what's false. Not, is it good for me, right? I mean, the whole framing of it's like an Enlightenment, utilitarian pleasure principle. What do I get out of this? Is it good for me? Do it make me do good and feel good? I mean, might as well make the topic of the debate, does religion make people feel good? I mean, it's equivalent to, is it good for society? Do it make me feel good? Do it give warm fuzzy? Well, that's a dumb way to have that debate. It doesn't make any sense. Does the religion make me feel good? I mean, it might, but what does that have to do with whether it's true or false? I mean, I don't know. If I was asked to come have this debate, I would be like, well, the framing of the debate itself doesn't make any sense. Is religion good for society? I would say that presupposes that we know what the good is. Maybe we should debate what is the good, right?
Universe.
But remember, almost nobody studies metaphysics. Almost nobody knows what these terms are, what these things mean. Almost nobody knows informal fallacies. So it's like, you're just, it's like the conversation that we have with James Sexton, right? And he's a highly intelligent person, obviously. He knows all kinds of stuff I don't know about. He's an expert in law and all that, sure. But being an expert in law and the ways of the world and all this, like, none of that had any it didn't grant any advantage to whether or not the argument was fallacious, whether or not what was being argued was true or false.
They do act worse. So it may.
So it's like the constant frustration that I experience is that we're talking about stuff that are, what can I liken it to? Imagine we're mechanics. And we know everything about the structure and makeup of a car. We know all the parts, how they go together. This thing over here, this runs this thing. This lubricates this other thing to make this thing go, to make this thing go. And it's just like this super complex, mobile computer that rolls down the road. And we know all about it, right? And so everybody else rides in cars and drives cars, but they don't know anything about the inner workings of the car, right? So when somebody says, let's have a discussion of cars. And by the car, I don't mean this in some arrogant way, like the car is God and I know everything about God. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the domain of laws of thought and argumentation and debate. That's what I'm talking about here. And metaphysics and the basics of philosophy, right? The car's philosophy here, not knowing everything about God for all you piety goons in the audience. And so everybody else is like driving around in the car and they don't care about the inner workings of the car, right? And so when we go to talk to these people about cars and I say, tell me what you think of the workings of a car. What do most people say? Oh yeah, dude, you're talking about my Bugatti and it run fast. Put oil in, put gas in, it go quick. Right? That's what people are thinking. Cool car, drive fast. Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla. And I'm thinking engine, ignition, part, all this guy. Like that's what I'm thinking of when I think of cars. So when we have this conversation, I say, yes, and I don't know shit about cars, so I'm trying to make this analogy work. But I don't know anything about cars. Yes, my friend, what do you think of the drive shaft and its components, the way that they connect to the ignition? Car go fast, right? They don't know what you're talking about. The heck's a drive shaft? I don't know. Shaft. Oh yeah, shaft, right? Well, I don't know what a drive shaft is. Car go fast. Car look cool. Car get chick, right? That's what most people are thinking about cars. We're not thinking about the workings and the components, right? And it's like most people, it's imagine, well, the car works because you could just put liquid inside of it and it go. So any liquid can go in? Or are there rules to what liquids you can put in the car to make it go? It's the same with argumentation, with logic, with epistemology. You can't just say anything and make argument go. But people can't get this. It's just like, it's two different languages. When I say car, I'm thinking of the drive shaft and all these stupid parts and components. And this thing ignites and causes a chemical reaction and that runs this thing and this goes through this part. And everyone else is just thinking, car go fast. Okay, so fine, car go fast, but there's rules to car go fast. Like, you can't just put bug juice, right? You can't put Purplesaurus Rex in the gas tank and it runs, right? You can't just push accelerator and it go through wall. No, it doesn't go. That thing doesn't go through walls. There's rules about, there's things that govern the logic of that car. It doesn't go through walls. I mean, you could try to go through a wall, but car no go fast when you go through wall, right? But no one thinks of the laws of thought and argumentation this way. But they're the same. There's rules to it. And everybody already kind of knows this, because if I were to, imagine I were having a conversation, or you've all experienced this with relatives. You're at the Thanksgiving turkey dinner, and you're violating all the rules of propriety and wisdom and arguing with your pervert uncle about whether or not there's conspiracies. You think 9/11 is an inside job? I ought to take your ass to the strip club and set you straight, boy. You dumb. Yeah. Right? Does your uncle know the laws of argumentation and logic? Of course not. And what does he say? Your uncle, drunk uncle says, 9/11 ain't an inside job because that don't feel right to me. Okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but how it feels to you, Uncle Jimmy, don't mean nothing. It doesn't mean squat, dude. That's a dumb argument. If you tell Uncle Jimmy that's a dumb argument, he's going to set his Doral cigarette down, and he's going to set his Michelob Light down, and he's going to take that mason ring and give you a nice little indentation across your jaw, because it's a Thanksgiving brawl. Don't argue with your drunk uncle. But drunk uncle is a great example of like what types of fallacies most people are going to churn out, right? 9/11 ain't an inside job because it's all them crazy towel-head people, right? That's not an argument. That's just a spit-out phrase. What if and then I turn around to drunk uncle and I say, drunk uncle, your arguments are false because your Dorals suck. My Dorals don't suck. I've been smoking this since I was 16. Only got emphysema and cancer 4 times. What are you talking about? He would see, even he would know that's a bad argument. So everyone knows deep down, even drunk uncle knows deep down, Uncle Jimmy, he knows there's bad arguments. And yet, even though we all kind of know this and sense it deep down, it's kind of obvious. Everyone just acts as if there are no laws of thought. There are no laws of logic. There's no laws of argumentation. There's no rules to any of this. It's all just arbitrary. It's all made up. And debating is just a demonstration of will to power. It's just power dynamics and being flashy and being silver-tongued and saying quick things and shutting people down. That's like destiny debate, right? Talking fast, that kind of thing. Which Ben Shapiro does that too, right? But Ben Shapiro can actually kind of debate, it seems like, right? He's kind of an actual sort of debater. I mean, again, I've not watched a lot of Ben Shapiro. I've seen the viral clips everybody has seen of this or that owning of the lib, from 5 or 6 years ago or whatever. But he's actually making a good argument here.
This is going to be sort of Straussian in its implications, but that may work for you. You're a very high IQ individual who can somehow reconcile the idea of living a very purposeful life with the idea that actually there's no purpose to anything. But for the vast majority of people, that is not actually how they live. And I would suggest that even in your daily life, you don't get out of bed in the morning thinking, man, my biology is driving me this morning to get on the bike, have a great day, the sun is shining. That's my biology.
Well, that's true, but the debate needs to go out of the whole domain of what helps people and what makes them feel good and what's good for them and for society. Because that has nothing to do with what's true or false. Again, that might be something we can draw out as an implication of what's true and false in this debate. The whole debate is wrong-headed. I mean, how do we know what's good for society if we don't know the good? And every way that this argument goes in this discussion so far, it's already just assuming that there's a common ground idea of what the good is. So what he ought to be doing is pressing Alex O'Connor on the good, the justification for the good, and pressing the deterministic naturalist fallacy, which O'Connor has already committed to.
Biology doing this. And I don't think that most people who live purposeful lives, even if they believe that everything they're doing is predetermined by the world around them, by their own biology, I don't believe they actually feel that. They have to engage in what they themselves would term an illusion in order to feel a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives.
Of course, but that's what the evolutionary process, in my view, in my worldview, I should say, has done so well, is provide precisely that illusion. I mean, it's not as that...
Wait a minute. The evolutionary worldview has provided that illusion? Is that what? Let's
feel that.
Make sure he said that.
That they have to engage in what they themselves would term an illusion in order to feel a sense of purpose and meaning in their life.
So to have purpose and meaning, Ben Shapiro is saying, you basically have to commit yourself to the illusion of purpose and meaning in this worldview that Alex O'Connor has. So I'll make sure I heard him say this.
Of course, but that's what the evolutionary process, in my view, in my worldview, I should say, has done so well, is provide precisely that illusion. I mean,
the evolutionary worldview has what? I mean, he's like, does anyone understand? He's losing the debate on his own. He's like, he's ruining himself very well. If I was Ben Shapiro, I'd be like, I'm just gonna sit back and let you talk. I just keep talking, please. Right? If I was Ben Shapiro, I'd be like, keep talking, dude. You're doing great refuting yourself, because what you just said, like, what?
It's not as that. I mean, you say, look, you don't get out of bed in the morning thinking, gosh, look at my biological
My neurons
drive.
are firing, yeah.
Of course not, because if I did, then the whole evolutionary purpose that this illusion serves would fall away. I mean...
Did he just admit that the entire worldview that he believes is an evolutionary system that provides the illusion? But guess what? Your belief in the evolutionary system is also part of the illusion, dummy. I mean, this is like... I mean, this is not rocket science, guys. You don't even need all the philosophical... You don't need philosophical training to realize that what he said just canceled out all of his argumentation and his whole worldview. In other words, my worldview is an illusion, but it helps me to live and have meaning, to not think about how my worldview is an illusion and meaningless. So let me hear him say this again, because it's hard to believe he actually argued this. Like, are you really just destroying your own position this easily? I mean, what?
You say, look, you don't get out of bed in the morning thinking, gosh, look at my biological
My neurons
drive.
are firing, yeah.
Of course not, because if I did, then the whole evolutionary purpose that this illusion serves would fall away. I mean...
Oh, so my whole worldview would collapse if I were to admit what is actually the case. That my worldview isn't really meaningful or coherent. But let me live my delusion and push my delusion, even though it's complete philosophical nonsense, as I try to make arguments and use logic and argumentation to have a meaningful discourse, which Ben Shapiro, to his credit, had already pointed out would be impossible. This whole argument with itself would be impossible if Alex O'Connor's worldview were true. So Alex O'Connor showing up to make this argument proves that Alex O'Connor does not believe his own worldview, and his own worldview is nonsense and incoherence.
You say that this is a fairly purposeless life, and perhaps the implication is that it's a bit of a depressing one. I didn't come here to inspire optimism in people. I just think it is in fact the case.
By the way,
it is in fact the case that
right. So he's trying to be the edgy atheist that owns it, but you didn't own your edginess. You didn't own up to it. You didn't affirm edginess. You destroyed your whole argument, dummy. But remember what Paul says? Now, Alex O'Connor, I'm sure Cosmic Skeptic, sees himself as a very sophisticated, popular YouTuber and college graduate man. Right? In other words, atheism is not a problem of intellect, right? Because does Scripture say that the atheist is ignorant? No, it calls him a fool. Does Romans 1 say that men just don't know because they haven't done enough syllogisms and enough Aristotelian logic? They just don't know. No, it says that all men know and are guilty because they suppress the truth deep down. So deep down, Alex O'Connor almost told you that he knows his worldview is total bullshit. Because if he were to admit what it really is, the illusion of the coherence and the rationality of the evolutionary worldview and survival of the fittest and all the stuff that he thinks is meaningful falls away as an illusion and is actually meaningless. But he will not admit that because he's committed to a delusion, which is not ultimately about reasoning and intellect. It's a problem of pride. Atheism is spiritual delusion, as the church elders say. It's not an intellectual problem. Atheism is an intellectual choice that is a result of a moral problem, a spiritual problem. Do you guys see that and why that's the case?
The world doesn't exist. And we may feel very nihilistic towards that, but as a wise man once said, facts don't care about your feelings. And I will say that the argument...
Well, wait a minute. If facts don't care about your feelings, then facts also don't care about your chosen delusions. And if your worldview is an admitted chosen delusion because it helps you to have meaning, which you already admitted it's all a lie, then all of your arguments are also delusions and lies. Oops.
Against free will, in my view, is based upon something broader than just scientific analysis or empirical research. Rather, we can build an argument, I think, from a law of logic, the proposition that P must either be true or false, and it can't be both, it can't be neither. It has to be one or the other.
We can build a worldview from a law of logic. Remember Matt Dillahunty? I don't know what transcendental categories are, they just are. So this is a magical, irrational faith in something that he calls a law of logic, which in his worldview doesn't even make sense. He believes in a determined, chaotic, meaningless, dysteleological universe. Presumably of pure matter. I assume he's a materialist determinist. Okay, a law of logic is not determined matter, dummy. It can't be. So what is it? Oh, it's an invariant, abstract, immaterial. Oh, but wait a minute. You don't have a basis to believe in those things. Because the same argumentation that you would use against a immaterial, invariant, unchanging God is the same argument that undercuts and destroys your belief in abstract, universal, metaphysical principles like laws of logic. Duh. This is just the Bonson-Stein debate all over again. You don't have a basis to believe in a law of logic. Laws of logic make sense in a theistic worldview. They do not make sense in your worldview. And you just admitted that it's an illusion anyway that falls away if you were to admit what's really going on at the biological level in your worldview. So basically saying all my arguments are delusions. They don't exist, but accept them because it helps me look cool on the internet, which he doesn't look cool. But anyway.
Now, this law of the excluded middle, one of the foundational precepts of philosophy, we can simply ask a question of any kind of mental activity. And this will be regardless of whether it's material or immaterial. That's what makes this a crucial argument and an important one.
I'm sorry, and how do you give an account for what's immaterial in your worldview as a determinist? I mean, I'm sorry. I feel sorry for you guys. It's a disservice to you guys that this is what the masses are presented with as the height of intellectual sophistication is cosmic skeptic, right? I mean, college is not a place where you're taught to rigorously, critically think. College is a place where you're indoctrinated to be churned out as an Alex O'Connor. Does that make sense?
Is that you can ask if that mental activity, is it determined or is it not? That is it determined by anything else or is it completely undetermined by anything? If it's undetermined by anything, then it's random. And you're by definition not in control of that which is random. If it's determined by something, then it's either determined by something further inside your mind or inside your brain or indeed inside your soul, or it's determined by something external to your brain. If it's determined by something external to yourself, I should say yourself rather than your brain here to rid this conversation of any implicit materialism, exterior to your...
Wait a minute. Rid the conversation of materialism. I mean... Aren't you committed to that? I mean, I'm not going to grant you that you have a basis to believe in anything immaterial in your materialistic universe or worldview, which you seem to be wanting to do now that you're talking about minds and selves. Excuse me, those are metaphysics. And the same chopping block that would cut off God for you in your worldview are also going to cut off things like minds and selves and laws of logic. Do you not get this? Atheists, you guys are super low IQ. I know it's hard to get you guys to understand this. But the same chopping block that cuts God off cuts off souls, selves, consciousness, the will, the good, laws of logic. Can you not see this? And yet here you are, every time you make a sentence, assuming laws of logic, meaning, telos, etc., etc., etc. Okay, right. So now that we all admit you're doing that, we need to hear an account for that. What is your account for your use and your belief in these things, which you've already admitted, by the way, are illusions and don't work? I mean, I guess the audience is just being gaslit, I guess, and that everybody just wants to be gaslit. They want to be, lie to me, please. Yes, please spank me. Intellectually spank me, please, Alex O'Connor. Please, I want Stockholm Syndrome because the atheist arguments are good, even though deep down I know they're complete nonsense. Please, intellectually spank me. I'm a bad person.
Self. If that's what's determining the action, then clearly you're not in ultimate control of that action. If it's something inside of yourself somewhere, then all you do is push the problem back and you ask the question again, is that thing determined or is it indeterminate? So, indeterminate, it's random. Determined, you keep going back until you either terminate in something outside of the self, something, or I suppose something undetermined and therefore random, either of which you are completely...
Dude, Alex O'Connor is so bad at debate that Trent Horn, who is mediocre at debate, completely demolished Alex O'Connor within about 40 minutes and had him contradicting himself right away. So, and I'm not trying to be mean to Trent, but my honest assessment as a person who knows how to debate of the debate with Trent, I would say Trent is a mediocre debater because he miserably failed to even understand the basic critiques I was making in our natural theology debate. So I give Trent a mid-grade. And Trent demolished both Matt Dillahunty and Alex O'Connor. So what does that tell you? So this is super low-grade level argumentation. And I hope you guys can see this. So, and I get asked maybe once every week or two, when are you going to debate Cosmic Skeptic? When are you going to debate Alex O'Connor? You think I haven't asked and sent emails and sent tweets countless times to all these people? Of course. That's never going to happen. And the reason it's never going to happen is not just because he's got a bigger channel or whatever. It's because there's no reason for him to do that debate. People who have this tier of debate, I guarantee you, can sniff out who would really demolish them in a debate. So there's no reason for them to do it. What do they gain from that debate? Because the majority of the population has already figured out that they think that this is high tier debate. The debate that we would have would probably fly over the heads of most people anyway. So what good would that even do? And it would only draw away the smarter aspects of Alex O'Connor's audience into theism or into our camp, right? So there's really no advantages to debating people who might beat you in a debate. And I think deep down they sniff it out. They know that I better stick to people in my wheelhouse, right? That I could probably hang with. Why would I debate somebody who, has spent 20 plus years studying epistemology and metaphysics when I can have a much lower tier, much more pop friendly debate? So again, that's explaining to you guys why would Alex O'Connor have a debate with me? Well, literally there's no reason for him to do it. There's nothing he gains from having a debate with me.
Out of control. If you say that it terminates in something like a soul, people like to do this. They say, well, look, with a religious philosophy, we have the benefit of introducing a soul. That doesn't solve anything. Because you still need to, it's not a matter of having to explain the mechanism by which the soul brings about actions. That may well be a mystery. But if it is the case that whatever it is that's doing that is either determined or it's not, and that if it's not, it's random and therefore out of your control, and that if it is, it ultimately...
Well, first thing I would say is that he's basing all of this on his belief in the law of the excluded middle. But as a atheist materialist, he doesn't have any basis or justification for believing in invariant immaterial laws. So I don't know how he knows or thinks that there's such a thing as a law of excluded middle in a deterministic universe. Number two, he's already admitted that a bunch of the things that we've talked about. Now he's arguing like there are souls and minds and selves, which he has no basis for either. So I don't know why we're supposed to think that those things exist in his worldview and why he's going to use those things and appeal to those things. Unless he's a car salesman and he's selling people obvious contradictions and lies and gaslighting people, which could be the case. But it's a false, it also could be a false dialectic, right? Like his argument was that from the law of the excluded middle, all of our actions are either completely determined or totally chaotic. Well, maybe a person is a unique kind of metaphysical thing that can be influenced by different types of things. And so their choices are neither totally biologically determined nor totally random. Maybe free will is a unique metaphysical category that doesn't fit into your bizarre, arbitrary, ad hoc either or, right? And he's going to say, oh, now you're attacking on unknown and unprovable metaphysical things. Oh, yeah, exactly. Like what you just talked about for the last 5 minutes. Unknown, unprovable metaphysical things in your worldview that make no sense. Do you guys understand the strength of presuppositional apologetics? Presuppositional apologetics is an immediate IQ test to eliminate from the outset everybody mediocre and under. It is the litmus test of mediocre and under immediately being canceled out. That's the strength of it when you understand what we're talking about.
Ultimately terminates in something outside of yourself or something random, and both of which are out of your control. Free will cannot exist.
Well,
and so I would be careful.
That argument does rely on the complete deconstruction of the self. I mean, you're using the term self in this argument in, I think, a couple of different ways. You're saying something outside yourself, but then you're breaking down the self into a bunch of separate components as though the self is a computer. Right? As though if you took the self and you broke it down into a machine, and there's like the micro.
Yeah, I like where he's going here. Like, this is the direction I would go in. I would point out all these different metaphysical terms that he's used as if they're things that he can appeal to when his worldview excludes the possibility of those things. Excludes them being coherent.
Microchip, and you've got the processor, you've got all these different parts of it. So it has to be coming from here or it has to be coming from here. But I think the very idea that we have of ourselves as selves is as a deciding being. And so the attempt to carve that down into, so which...
Yeah, this was my point. So he's saying what I was saying through an analogy. So I agree with him here.
Parts of the deciding being, that is an avoidance strategy. So I don't think that the argument quite holds.
Well, if we can call the self just a deciding
being, call it a deciding being,
then that sort of fundamental assumption that we make about the nature of the self, I don't think is going to be incompatible with atheism.
This marks the potential start of a third.
These AI ads, these deepfake ads are getting totally ridiculous, right? Like every day there's like some, it's like Michael Saylor, Donald Trump. Hello everybody, this is Dr. Phil, and the government has lied to you about the checks that you can get if you sign up here on this app, right? It's like the worst, stupidest deepfake ads ever. I get them on every video.
How so?
Because we're talking about what the self is here. I mean, atheists believe in the self. Everybody believes in the self.
Well, no,
gosh. Yeah, thank you, Alex, for telling us the things that you believe in that have no basis or justification and make no sense in your worldview. That's exactly what we want to call out. We know you believe in these things and use these things and act like you're an atheist, using and believing in and basing your life around things that in your worldview don't exist. But this guy is so low IQ, doesn't even see this.
I mean, that I find difficult to believe. Why would an atheist believe in the self? The self is a series of non...
Yeah, exactly. So Ben Shapiro is actually absolutely nailing him on the very thing I would argue.
Deciding mechanisms, as you described. I see that your view of the self is an atheist view of the self, a meatball wandering through space, as I've put it somewhat colorfully, the sort of Spinoza idea that you're a stone that's been thrown, and you can comprehend that you've been thrown, but you're a stone that's been thrown, and that's just the way that it is. Why would there be in atheist philosophy such a thing as a deciding self? The deciding self, the deciding being, is external to the idea of an evolutionary cause, because the very word deciding suggests uncaused decision-making.
Yeah, exactly. This is the appropriate way. So Ben Shapiro is absolutely correct the way he's critiquing this worldview. I had no idea what I was going to get when I clicked this video. And a million people said, please, not a million, but tons of people said, do the debate between Shapiro and O'Connor. Yeah, so here we are. This is the essence of the free will predestination debate or determinism debate. And Shapiro is absolutely correctly on point, calling him out as to a presuppositional internal critique of the atheist worldview, that the self makes no sense. It's arbitrary and ad hoc. But again, do atheists do anything but be arbitrary and ad hoc? No, they don't.
And you've just excluded it through your own philosophy.
Uncaused decision making, I suppose, is a concept that I think is unintelligible, and therefore, if there is an unintelligibility.
So you notice, unless there was an edit there, no response on what the self was. The whole discussion was about now the metaphysics of the self, which O'Connor was trying to appeal to. Ben Shapiro correctly called him out on it, and he's deflecting off into some other thing. So he doesn't want to talk about that, clearly. And look at the body language. He looks like he even gets bothered by the question. Look at him like he's closing his eyes and like, he's like, oh shit, oh shit. I brought up self, but I already canceled out things like self in my dumb philosophy. What am I gonna do?
The very word deciding.
Look at him down bad right there. I do down bad.
Oh, he's a British atheist. He's got his quibby quabbles and a wibby wobble. Oh, golly gobbers. Oh, blumdy-dumby Bumbledore. He bumble-dumby Dumbledore.
Suggests
He's like, uh-oh. Look at that angry eyes now. I've had enough debates, by the way, where you can begin to see in the body language of people when they're in uh-oh land. You just stepped your foot into a big pile of uh-oh shit right there.
Cause decision-making. And you've just excluded it through your own philosophy.
Oh! That's exactly what I would have argued.
Uncaused decision-making.
Oh, let's not talk about that, and let me shift it over into some other thing, uncaused decision-making. That was a pretty, again, this is the first proper.
This is a proper debate. We're going to have a debate. It's going to be proper.
This is my first proper debate with Ben Shapiro, watching him do a proper debate, not debating a purple-haired college goblin. And I think that was actually pretty solid. I see the body language of cosmic shit pile here just melts. He sinks down and then gives him evil eyes.
It is. Why would there be in atheist philosophy such a thing as a deciding self? The deciding being, is external to the idea of an evolutionary cause, because again,
close my eyes and let me sink into myself. Let me sink into my non-existent determined self and come up with an argument. Watch the mean eyes.
The very word deciding.
Look at he's watch the angry look.
Suggests uncaused decision.
So, and I give credit to Ben Shapiro for handling it in a friendly way. Because if I was debating Alex O'Connor, we all know that I will throw in some jokes, and I put these people into a rage. When they debate with me, they get into a rage. So he wouldn't have just been giving me, evil eye, nasty look. Dude would have jumped across the table with soy rage. Well, he wouldn't have jumped across. He'd run out of the room, right? We have a rage quit, soy rage quit, estrogen rage quit. Anyway, so there you go. A lot of you said, cover this, cover this. I sound like I went into a Dr. Phil. When are you going to cover this? We're going to have to go back to the Wi-Fi now because my damn internet's all netted up. My internet's been drinking Michelob Light and smoking Dorals. So hold on just one second. everybody's going to be fussing. Where's train go? Where's train go? We didn't even end up talking about aliens tonight. We ended up talking about this goofy debate. But it was exactly... I wonder if Ben Shapiro listens to arguments we make, though. Could be. Could be. Now we got to talk about aliens, though. What's the F for? We got putting F's in the chat. I just had to switch back over to the Wi-Fi. What's with the F's? We're still here. We ain't going nowhere. I told you we had to come right back because I had to switch over to the Wi-Fi. Because if I use the LAN, I have to turn off the Wi-Fi. When the battery runs down, I have to switch back to the Wi-Fi, right? No, it's not the government. We're here. Everything's good. So, I'm going to have to change the title of this live stream because it ended up not really being about what we thought it was going to be about. But I think those sections were quality critiques there. Maybe we should just leave it like it is, though, and not even get into alien stuff. Because now it won't even make sense to talk about alien stuff, given that nothing we talked about had anything to do with aliens. So, we'll see what we got. Ken M says for $5, I love your work, but you have chronic rhinitis. Well, thank you for internet diagnosing me, Dr. Internet. But if I have something that's chronic, that means it comes and goes. And this is not something that comes and goes. This is something that arrived via the Vatican and has not left. So it has just been here. But thank you for your diagnosis, Dr. Internet. And you said use saline and nasal. We'll see. Rob Branium, $5. I need an alien to twerk. I need an alien to twerk for me. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too. Maybe Santa will bring you a nice, supple alien to twerk for you. Single man. Rob Branium, $5. Dang, the super chats made my fire emojis become questions. Merry Christmas to Jamie too. Well, I'm sure Jamie is happy that you are wishing her a Christmas time. But I will not speak for her because she may not bless you for Christmas. So I'm not going to speak for her. Kristen, $10. I could not super chat until you were done singing. It was too captivating. Oh, come on. Return up the Mac. Exactly. You feel me? Vincent MGTOW, $5. I hate to interrupt this ear candy, but can you sing Classic Mode? What is Classic Mode? Oh, Depeche Mode. I hear that they are on tour and I wanted to go see them. Well, they came to Nashville and I was trying to buy tickets and it ended up not working out where we could be there when they were in Nashville. And then I thought, well, maybe they're going to come to Florida. So I didn't make it a priority to buy Nashville tickets because I thought, well, I'll try to see them somewhere in Florida, but I don't think they even came to Florida. So I really wanted to see Depeche Mode and was in the process of buying tickets and I did it. I love to sing and I appreciate when people sing in front of other people. We need to do more karaoke, right? We need to have more karaoke nights. Luke plays drums, $5. Jay, you're going to make me stumble, tempting you with alien booty cheeks. You should not be tempted by CGI aliens twerking. So you need to go see a doctor, a mind doctor, a mental health doctor. You need to go get your mental healths checked and take a self-care day. You said, my alien and myself can go get individual blessings as a couple at the local Roman Catholic Church. Exactly, yes. It's a couple's blessing. Uh-oh. Mark Morrison showed up. Don't ever sing my song again. Jesuits owe me a favor, by the way. Oh, come on. Well, I'm sorry, Mark Morrison, that I don't know what the Jesuits have to do with your song, but I apologize. Storm the Cat, $10. Have you watched the anime Death Note? I have not, because I've not seen much anime at all. So I'll have to try to remember to look at Death Note. Ben Shield for the Jab. Storm the Cat, $3. Frankie D, $5. Drunk Uncle's stories remind me of how, and by the way, I forgot, yes, Drunk Uncle is a Saturday Night Live character. That's not what I was thinking of. I was actually thinking of my uncle. So, anyway. They try to remind me of how Drunk Uncles explained fighting Saddam in the war was for America and it wasn't for John D. Rockefeller. Dudes that went there don't like to hear that. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you try to explain that the wars are not fought for America's defenses, but for, you know, Subway, Coke, Pepsi, and Amazon, that doesn't make them happy. Exactly. Jay, did you watch the Jim Bob debate with Mike Burgundy? No. I've not seen the recent Jim Bob debate. I'm assuming that's on the Crucible. Let's see. Ooh, I'm streaming over my wife. Uh-oh. She's going to be mad at me. Let's see. Jim Bob's debate with Mike Burgundy. Is he an atheist? He an atheist? Atheist? Mike Burgundy. Let's take a little look at it.
I don't believe in any gods. And I believe that there are some gods, especially the Christian one, that are definitionally unable to exist, meaning they entail logical contradictions or inconsistencies. So today, I will point out these logical inconsistencies, contradictions.
I like it. He's got Brian Greene's book on dimensions in the background. Like, that's going to make him look smart, right? Like, I know about dimensions, dude. I know about dimensions. What's the other book? I can't tell what it is. Something Cosmos, like Carl Sagan or something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have the energy for this. 3 hours? Good grief, dude. Is there a specific, like, gotcha point in this debate that I could go to? I can't watch all 3 hours of this. Mike lost the very moment he said that we can see logic in its matter. Okay, well, yeah, if that would be the kill shot. So is there a timestamp? Can we just go to that? I mean, that's like, these atheists are just like bottom of the barrel, dude. They're so dumb, man. I'm not trying to be mean, like there aren't dumb Christians or religious people. There's dumb people everywhere. Guess what? There's dummies everywhere. But I mean, it's just like atheism is when they actually go up against an educated, metaphysically, philosophically grounded person, it's like Michael Jordan versus playground people, right? I mean, it's like they don't even know basic stuff. They just completely collapse. I mean, imagine thinking that logic is material. I mean, that's basically what we reduced Stefan to saying within like 10 minutes of our debate, right? Jim Bob annihilated Mike. Mike is out of his depth. I mean, and they're saying he's a midwit Reddit atheist. Yeah, so it looks like that's about what I expected it would be. Let's see. You said in the rest of your comment, if you did watch this debate, what kind of arguments would hit home with that audience? I don't even know what audience. I mean, the Crucible audience or the atheists? It seems like you can apply it's DYS, dysteleology, not DIS, dysteleological arguments to any person arguing for determinism. Yeah, sure, of course. Absolutely. Steve Miller, $5. Steve Miller, man. We got Boomer Rockers in the chat, as well as R&B legends. We got Mark Morrison and Steve Miller Band in the chat. $5. Explain the link between Jesus' death at age 33 and Masonic number 33. I don't believe in or know of any connection between that. I mean, maybe the Masons think that arbitrarily they could say, you know, post hoc, oh, well, the number 33 corresponds to Jesus's death at 30. I mean, there is no connection. Masonry is just based on made up stuff. Frankie D, $10. Do a Christopher Walken. My Christopher Walken's not very good. Y'all, everybody requests like my worst impressions. I think I'm pretty good at quite a few. But my walking is not very good, man. I have to go back to work. I have to go back to the shop, literally, because you can't actually work on impressions and make them better. So I'd have to work on my Christopher Walken to get it better. It's just, and I haven't done it in a long time. Expand on the Dr. Phil with Christopher Walken doing an ad about how you should buy chalk, Patriot chalk, to be prepared for the shortages. I'm sorry, Frankie D. I just don't have a good enough. Ooh, wow. And wow. Right? Remember when he's dancing with the aliens? Oh, wow. I like to dance with aliens. Now, that's a problem that you've got that's a deep-seated thing with your mother. Do you think you would always dance with aliens if you had a father at home? How's that? How's that? That's the kind of conversation I would see Christopher Walken and Dr. Phil having, right? Because I'm talking about the movie Communion. Does anybody even seen the movie Communion? You don't even know what I'm talking about. In Communion, Christopher Walken does the cha-cha with aliens, right? Playing Whitley Strieber. So, anyway. So I think we'll just skip aliens. It doesn't even make sense to talk about aliens now. It's like, maybe we could do this tomorrow night or something. But we ended up not even totally different topics tonight. That's okay, because everybody's always requesting, debate reviews. So probably better to do the debate review with what we talked about tonight. But look, guys, come on. There's one thing I got to tell y'all. You all know it, but we're all avoiding it. We're all telling ourselves lies about how to become masculine. And we all know the secret is chalk.com.
Chad Mode is your ultimate natural pre-workout, designed to take your performance to the next level. Chad Mode is for natty beast alphas only. Whether you're hitting the gym, invading a favela, conquering a small village, gambling, burning the midnight oil, mogging on your coworkers, or getting banned from Facebook, Chad Mode gives you the competitive edge you need. It's as simple as mixing 1 or 2 scoops of our fine powder into water or juice, providing you with a delicious, energizing beverage featuring a burst of sweet, organic fruit flavor. Chad Mode will give you the extra edge you desperately crave. Chad Mode stands out from the crowd by excluding artificial flavors, preservatives, sweeteners, and dyes. We've even avoided so-called natural flavors, ensuring a clean and effective formula. Only soy boys and betas guzzle blue dye and sucralose, further tanking their already low testosterone levels. Chad Mode is made in America. Unlike your common TikTok peasant's pre-workout powder, it does not contain Chinese lab-made caffeine and artificial sweeteners that soy boys so often crave. Experience the pure goodness of Chad Mode with Blue Magic registered trademark organic blue spirulina extract, organic lemon, cherry, and organic maple crystals. Forget synthetic caffeine. Embrace the natural power of organic green coffee bean extract. Each dose of Chad Mode mirrors the caffeine kick of a cup and a half of coffee, delivering a surge of energy alongside essential vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and herbal extracts. Chad Mode will allow you to fire your boss and mog on anyone who...
something that we're all proud of. I got a browser here. This is Jay Dyer's much vaunted, much sought after Philosophy 101. Now, he just got this page up. We are just testing it out. You guys are some of the first people in the world to see it. I want to say, for my part, it's not Philosophy 101. I think this is a mistitling. I really think of it as like Philosophy Unleashed, because a Philosophy 101 course, they give you kind of some useless information that you can't make sense of. Jay actually lays out over 12 weeks, dozens and dozens of hours put into just the presentation of this, let alone the hundreds and thousands of hours of research that it takes to have a coherent evolution and history of the origins of philosophy, the uses of philosophy, the different ways to look at it over time, and how that has been brought about to what we have today, which is almost an absence of philosophy on the objective logic and reason side, and an overabundance of woke philosophy that is irrational and is made up day by day as people are like, I think we should bring racism back, and then here's a justification, and then it gets wokeified and spread out, and then all of a sudden you have a bunch of communist, socialist ideas where you become the property in action. You need to be able to stand your own ground. It helps to have a foundation in philosophy, because it's a method to find truth. When you get down to it, philosophy is there because you love truth enough to go and learn how to find it because it's valuable. So if you're interested in things like that, there is the landing page. We'll link it up in the notes. It is a longer one, so we'll get a shorter URL for this. I'm sure Jay has a link on his page. I just wanted to show it off. Now you know it exists. You can go look for it and see.
Is it unmuted now? Somebody said you a mess. Your mom's a mess. I don't know why it's muted. Shouldn't be muted. Anyway. Well, it's the end of the stream anyway. Anyway, so you're just fussing about nothing. Maybe I wanted to come on muted. And maybe I didn't want you to hear the horrible things I was saying about your mom. Do you think about that? Do you think about whether I might have muted on purpose so you didn't have to get your feelings hurt? Troy says for $5, make a video tour of your library. Explain how to start with a good personal book collection. Well, I did a library tour several years ago, and that was back when I had like 5,000 subscribers. So I've probably gotten a few thousand books since then too. So we could do a library tour. It's kind of like, let's see if I can do this. Can I do this?
Y'all want to see what's behind the scenes?
So when you look at the other side of the room, it's exactly the same. So there's basically the same stuff, right, on the other side of the room. And then there's another room that is the exact same as this room with all the same books, shelves. So basically 2 full rooms. But you want a video where I go around and show you all the books. And also you ask for a basic library, like a starter kit for a library. MTV Cribs, MTV Libraries. Ain't no such thing as MTV Libraries. I might do that. I might do that one day. It's gonna take more than a $5 super chat though. You gotta pay me. We gotta pay me a lot more than that to do it, right? Or else I'm gonna start rapping. Y'all better super chat. Or I'm gonna start rapping again. You know what I'm saying? You remember that? I'm gonna start threatening that you have to super chat me or else I will rap. Let's see. Here we go. Remember this? Oh, it's already disconnected. Never mind. Yeah, we could do a library tour sometime. That'd be fun. Am I rage quitting? I'm always rage. Dude, I rage quit on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Anyway, a lot of fun tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I can't think of anything else to review.